So we really wanted to have this presentation to introduce these projects to the public, present, what we'll be doing in the next couple years, present proposed detours, and answer any questions that anyone may have related to these projects. The main purpose of these projects is to maintain, safe and reliable bridges, preserve the existing structures wherever possible, or replace certain features that have reached the end of their useful life. And we're just trying to maintain safe crossings for the traveling public. So the first bridge we're going to cover is the one in Bethel Park. It's the Hillcrest Bridge. It carries Bethel Church Road over the PRT light rail tracks. That's the Silver Line. This is a little bit zoomed in view. This building at the upper right-hand corner of the highlighted area of the bridge is the Walgreens at the intersection of Bethel Church Road and 88, just to give you a little bit of a reference. So the scope of this bridge work will be a deck preservation. We're going to scarify the deck, remove about the top 1 inch of concrete, and replace it with a 1 1/4 inch latex modified concrete that will help remove any cracks, seal everything up, get a good a good seal on that deck to prevent chloride penetration from road salt for winter maintenance and things like that. We're going to do repairs and retrofits to the safety barriers that separate the sidewalks from the roadway. We're going to do a full sandblast and paint of the steel beams below that are the main supports for the bridge. We're going to replace all of the bearings that support the beams, replace deck joints that handle expansion and contraction. We're also going to do concrete repairs to the substructure abutments and piers, which are the foundation of the bridge. We're going to replace the protective fence. And then we are also going to fill some areas that have eroded around the substructure from rainwater, and prevent those areas from seeing water damage. There will be some minimal approach roadway reconstruction work for the tie-ins with the new deck. And then we're going to replace guide rail, bring it up to current standards, and then any signage or pavement markings that need to be replaced in the project area will be. So right now, our anticipated schedule, all of these bridges will be let or bid as one group in the summer of 2025. Then we'll go through the contracting process once we open bids, issue notice to proceed to our contractor, and we would estimate that construction will start in the spring of 2026. The majority of the work on this structure will be done under flagging conditions on weekdays, and then we have 6 weekend closures that we're anticipating to do a lot of the work on the deck and the deck, the barriers in that area where it would be difficult to work with only flagging traffic. The total construction duration is anticipated to be 6 months. And during that time, we'll be coordinating with Pittsburgh Regional Transit for possible effects to the Silver Line for the light rail below. So during the weekend closures, traffic will be detoured. On the map here, you can see our preferred detour route that we are pursuing. That would take traffic along northbound on 88 to Connor Road over to 19 and then around. That is our preferred detour due to the ability for Connor Road to handle the amount of traffic that we would be detouring from Bethel Church. However, that Connor Road Bridge may be being worked on by PennDOT at the same time period. We're both still in design, so we're trying to coordinate schedules. But if it becomes an issue, then we have a second detour alternate that would take traffic southbound on 88 to South Park Road and then back around to Bethel Church Road in the area of Fort Couch. That's a slightly shorter detour, but due to most of South Park Road being 2 lanes rather than 4 compared to Connor Road, it's a less desirable alternative, but it may be the way we have to go. So our next bridge is Ivory Avenue Bridge number 1. This is the bridge that carries Ivory Avenue over McKnight Road, right as you get off of I-279 in the North Hills part of the city of Pittsburgh. You can see the bridge here highlighted in yellow, and the ramp system at the bottom of this screenshot is the on and off ramps to I-279 at the McKnight Road interchange, just to give you some bearing. So the scope of work on this one is a little more in depth. As part of the design process, we determined that the deck on this one, the deck on this bridge was not as in good of shape as we had hoped. So rather than trying to put a latex overlay similar to what we're doing on Hillcrest, we determined that it would be more cost effective to replace the entire deck due to the life expectancy we would get out of it. Related to that, then instead of doing barrier repairs, we're going to have to replace the safety barriers. And we're also going to replace the approach slabs, which are the concrete slabs on the roadway once you get off of the structure itself. We are also going to do a full sandblast and paint for this bridge and replace all the bearings and deck joints. This one also has some substructure repairs for spalling and cracks, and we're going to replace the protective fence along the sidewalk. We do have some minimal approach roadway work, guide rail work, and signage work, and we are also going to try and improve some of the drainage in the area of the structure. So similarly to Bethel Church Road, we're expecting this project to bid as part of the group in summer of 2025, with the construction to start in the spring of 2026. This bridge will need a longer term closure due to the deck demolition and replacement. we would anticipate that work to be approximately 8 months of total closure. So this would extend into the fall of 2026. Similarly, along the ramps to I-279 and on McKnight Road, we're anticipating some shoulder closures and lane shifts, but both directions of traffic will be maintained throughout construction. And attached here, you can see the proposed detour. It's somewhat long, and we are going to sign this, and we felt it was the best route for traffic to take based on traffic volumes and type of traffic and everything. Okay, the next project is a little further north along 279, and that's the Bellevue Road Bridge over I-279 in Ross Township. Okay, this shot actually shows you the Bellevue Road Bridge on the left of this shot, with the Jacks Run Road Bridge on the right, since they're both pretty close together. The scope of work for this one is going to include a deck preservation, again using a hydrodemolition scarification of 1 inch on the deck, and then replacing that with 1.25 inches of latex modified concrete, barrier repairs and upgrades, approach slab replacement, a full painting of the steel beams, replacement of all the bearings, deck joints, crack and spall repairs on the substructure units, the abutments and pier, replacing the protective fence along the sidewalk, repairing the concrete sidewalk, and approach roadway reconstruction, and then guide rail and signage and pavement marking upgrades and improvements in the work area. Again, we're anticipating bids to open in the summer of 2025, with construction to start in the spring of 2026. The length of the closure on this project is also approximately 8 months, and that would put completion sometime in the fall of 2026. And then along I-279, we are anticipating shoulder closures and potentially some lane shifting, but we think most of that would be more ingress and egress for construction vehicles getting in and out of the construction work zone in the shoulder areas, rather than long-term lane restrictions. So you can see the proposed detour route here, due to some of the turning radiuses and things along the route for larger trucks. This was the best alternate. So you can see we'll be taking traffic north, and then coming back and crossing 279 at the Levi Bird Duff Bridge, which is, I believe, called Center Avenue and Cornell Avenue at different points. And then the final project that's part of this group is Jack's Run Bridge number 3. This is also over I-279 in Ross Township. The same shot as before, you can see this one is just south, or in this view to the right of the Bellevue Road Bridge. So this project started out with a similar scope as the others, and as we were working through design, evaluating in-depth inspections, and going through life cycle and cost assessments, the scope of this bridge did expand. We are actually going to remove the current two-span structure and portions of the south abutment. We're going to remove the north abutment and the pier to the top of the retaining wall, and we're going to reconstruct, the top of the south abutment, and then completely reconstruct the north abutment. We will be installing a single span structure rather than a two-span structure, and it will be steel beams rather than concrete beams. And we'll be putting a new reinforced concrete deck with concrete barriers on. We're going to be doing some approach roadway reconstruction and some guide rail replacement along Jack's Run Road, as well as signage and pavement markings, replacing those in the work area as well. So this one again is estimated to open bids in the summer of 2025 with the rest of the group. Due to the proximity between Jack's Run and Bellevue Road, we are anticipating starting construction on this one in December of 2026 to once Bellevue Road reopens. We anticipate this one having a longer closure of about 10 months due to the extent of the work. And traffic along I-279 will have shoulder closures and lane shifts and restrictions similar to Bellevue Road. There will also be 2 extended weekend closures of I-279 within the project area. As of right now, that's what we're anticipating. We are trying to time this along with Bellevue Road so that we are able to take advantage of weekends with that see less traffic. We're working with PennDOT to develop a schedule that identifies what the best weekends will be and what the detours for I-279 will be, since it will have to be closed in both directions. At this point, we don't have those detours developed, but we're trying to be mindful of both larger truck traffic traveling through the area, as well as more local residents of the county, to try and come up with the best possible solutions. The first weekend closure would be pretty early in the project for demolition of the structure. And then the second weekend closure would be a little later on in the project. To place the steel beams, we'll need to bring a pretty large crane in and swing the beams into place, and it's safest to do that when there's not live traffic below. So you can see this uses a slightly different detour than Bellevue Road, but this again was attempting to take into consideration truck turns and the amount of traffic we'll be putting onto the roads that we're detouring traffic on. Okay. And this slide is kind of lays out what's called the NEPA process, or the National Environmental Policy Act. It's to allow everyone to see, what requirements, restrictions, laws and regulations that we have to follow as part of our project. And some of these are tied to funding types, others are things we have to follow on all projects, but this is just to let everyone know what we're following, and if they have any questions on that, follow up with them.
All right, thank you, Mike. Just a reminder that a recording of this meeting, in case you came in late, will be added to the county's YouTube channel as well as the county's website tomorrow for later viewing. We'll also put a copy of the slideshow for you to download as well. So if anyone has any questions, concerns, comments, you can either raise your hand using the Microsoft Teams tool on the top, and then I'll call on you and you can unmute yourself, or you could put your questions, concerns, or comments in the chat, and I will read that out loud, and Mike or another representative will answer your question. So does anyone want to get started? Does anyone have any questions, concerns, comments?
Brent, you're muted.
What about pedestrian access to the bridges, Mike?
We're working on the each of the different bridges to determine what the needs for pedestrians are at this point. We're certainly trying to be mindful of that and develop the best option we can for each structure, as they're all slightly different.
Right, Holly, it looks like you had your hand raised. Do you have a question for Mike?
Yes. Are these bridge repairs and updates being funded by Biden's infrastructure plans? Infrastructure funding?
Not at this time. Currently, the federal funding we're receiving for these projects was in place prior to that act being passed. We are still working to secure the funding for construction, so that may become an option, but not at this time.
Oh, okay. So you wouldn't. So the funding's in place in total for these 4 bridges, or?
The funding is in place for preliminary engineering and final design. We do have some funding identified for construction, but depending on timelines and priority, sometimes things do move around. So
okay,
we work with PennDOT and the SPC to lock in funding as we get closer to actual construction.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the question. Mike, we have a question from someone who called in. They said, will Ivory Avenue be completely closed for the entire 8 months of the project?
Yes, we do anticipate that Ivory Avenue will be closed for at least the majority of that time.
Thank you, Mike. Does anyone else have any questions, concerns, or comments? You can put it in the chat or raise your hand. If you also have any questions after the meeting that you didn't think of here, you can always email me. My email address is Brent, BRENT, .wasco, WASKO, at Allegheny County, all one word, .us. All right, we have Adam Ravenstall raising his hand. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
How will the public continue to be, and also the municipalities, how will we continue to be notified for, I assume this isn't the last public meeting, how do we envision the next 2 years going in terms of notification and ultimately preparing for extensive road closures?
As we get closer to construction and letting the project, we try and send out letters and correspondence to the affected municipalities, Port Authority, Pittsburgh Regional Transit, local school districts, emergency services, to inform them of the schedule, inform them of the detours, remind everyone, give them contact information that they can reach out to if there is, if they have questions or, concerns. This is really the point where we seek public input, while we're still early enough in the stages to find out if there's anything we need to consider that maybe we hadn't. But, as we get closer, we just try and coordinate scheduling more than anything, I would say. And then, prior to the actual closure being implemented, we send out press releases to local news organizations through the county's Allegheny alert system, trying to inform the public the best we can. And then we put up advance notice signs along the road, typically 2 weeks ahead of time, so that people that use the road regularly will be aware.
Thank you, Adam. Does anyone else have any questions, concerns, comments? Feel free to raise your hand or put your question into the chat. All right, with no one else raising their hand or asking a question, I think we're going to conclude for tonight. Thank you so much for joining us again. If you think of anything after the meeting, feel free to reach out and we'll be able to help out as much as possible and answer your questions. Thank you so much.